All right, we're live. So I just wanted to make my nightly video. Uh, Going to cover what Montagraph covered in his call-in show tonight because he couldn't publish it because it went over 3 hours. It was a good show. There's some off the wall fringe people that called in. A guy and a gal. And I was just going to go over a little bit of what he covered. The main topic was defunding the police department in Minneapolis and other places. You know, what if it went nationwide and they wanted to defund the police department or abolish the police department and make policing into a privatized industry, you know. So basically everybody was against that, you know. Some people had their ideas of one caller. I think he was a liberal from California. Wanted to make it, you know, privatize the police or make it a community thing, you know. And the big points were that Montagraph pointed out was, you know, what if armed thugs were breaking into your house and they were going to rob you? What would you do? Who would you call that could get there quick enough and that was armed or prepared enough to handle a situation like that? You know, so basically, it all came down to, most of the conversations came down to that we already have these systems in place, and that we need better training for our officers. We need to model the European training models that they have. I believe they have about 3 more years of training involved with their schooling. We need better education, so better schooling and better training after they get out of school. And before they get hired, I believe they need to change their hiring tactics, because they're hiring, you know, these high school football players straight out of high school that are bullies. You know, and they hire bullies. They profile for hiring aggressive males. So we need to change their hiring tactics, or make it policy that they have psychological profiles done, and that people that are displaced to flash anger or you know, bullying or just downright getting angry easily, or prone to violence or anything like that, shouldn't be hired to the police force. We need people that will respond appropriately to domestic violence situations, to people that are on drugs, like George Floyd was on drugs. You know, the EMT should have been called immediately to that situation, instead of messing around with him so long that he eventually was dead before the EMT showed up because of bad policing by some bad guys, you know. So that's basically it for that. You know, they need to have, I'm making some coffee, that's what that noise is. I'm out here in the garage, late night in the garage. And so we need better training, better education, better hiring policies. You know, we need reform for our police. And, you know, I believe that every police officer should have done at least 4 to 6 years in the military, some branch of the military or National Guard, before they become a police officer, just to get that hardcore training and listening to an officer above them, you know, and responding to orders and stuff like that. So that's basically it for the police reform. We do need police reform, big time. I agree that police brutality is gotten out of hand and has always been out of hand, um, except for places, it's certain places in Europe, and you still have bad apples, that slip through, and there's police brutality in even the best places in Europe. And so that's about it for that. There was one caller. I changed the topic now to metaphysics. There's one caller talking about his experience in Colorado up on near Pikes Peak. There was a goose outside. Did you hear that? But anyway, his experience up on Pikes Peak, or near Pikes Peak, that he went into some sort of interdimensional out-of-body thing and got a bunch of information downloaded to him in the wake in front of this thunderstorm. So basically, he was talking about timelines and the Mandela effect, and his experience with the Mandela effect, and with Waco and the Oklahoma City bombing was off by a couple years to his perception. And I think a lot of people have this experience. I don't have a lot of Mandela effect experiences, but when I do hear about Mandela, that was my cat. Where's my cat? But when I do hear about Mandela effect, even all the new ones or the old ones, that even the what it's named after, the Mandela effect, Nelson Mandela's death, I can remember both scenarios where he died in the 80s and then the other scenario where he died in the 90s. I remember those news reports. I remember them. They might not be able to be found on the internet anymore. And whether that's because they were scrubbed or whether that's because we shifted timelines, shifted into a different reality somehow, some way, at one point or another, or at all points at the same time. See, and that's where transdimensional entities and aliens and spirits and demons and things like that come into play. A Sasquatch, is a transdimensional entity, I believe, simply because he could appear and disappear real quick, just like that. So let me make my coffee here. So yeah, I believe that ever since around the time of the Mandela death in the 80s, or whether you believe mainstream that it was in the 90s, that or was it the 2000s that they said he died? Anyway, if you believe in things like the Mandela effect or have had experiences, leave a comment. I'll hear about things like that. But or out of body experiences or anything like that. I'll subscribe to your channel if you have content that is conducive to that stuff, or covers that stuff. But I believe that CERN, when the Large Hadron Colliders started firing up around the world, and CERN, the most popular one, and they've got a big one down in Antarctica too. The U.S. military does, or DARPA, or one, because what's that guy's name? Oh fuck. Anyway, guy on YouTube found that facility using the Fitbit tracking technology they have on Fitbit. So he found that facility down there, a CERN facility down in Antarctica. But anyway, I believe that when CERN fired up, or any of the Large Hadron Colliders. When these Hadron Colliders fired up and they started running experiments trying, like they say, they're trying to actively open portals and summon demons into D-Wave computers or summon them into microchips and then, or some sort of crystalline energy harnessing battery device that could be planted into the D-Wave computers. Or just straight out summoning, making the hardware of the computer resemble signals and glyphs of summoning. Therefore making just like Hellraiser, like basically a Hellraiser box. These D-Wave computers are basically Hellraiser boxes to bring forth the other side into the world, into our 3D reality. Bring these other dimensions into more physical form. I believe that when CERN fired up, that's when the timelines, these dimensions started crossing, and about every 2 to 6 weeks to 2 months to 9 months, we shift these timelines in small points and larger points at given times. And I think it might have to do with solar and lunar cycles as well. I think that naturally occurring timeline shifts have always happened due to astrological alignments in the solar system and planetary alignments and just the magnetic field. Electromagnetism has everything to do with time and space. Without electromagnetism, there would be no time or space or matter or anything like that. So, but the basic electron and photon that are essential to create matter. Where did they come from? How is energy created? It's created by different polarities of force. So in the universe, you've got one side's positive, the other side's negative, and that's reflected as above, so below. That's reflected in the galaxies, down to the solar systems, down to the planets, down to the organisms that reside on the planets. We all live in state of duality. We have a positive and a negative charge to us at any given time. And we react in positive and negative emotions, and the foods we eat are charged. Everything has to do with electromagnetism and plasma. So I believe these timelines have been crossing in extreme fashion since CERN has fired up. And, I believe CERN has tried to manipulate our geomagnetic field by propping it up during this solar minimum. Yeah, I believe CERN has a lot to do with what's going on right now. So the collapse of Western civilization as we know it is happening right now. Western society, I should say, Western society, the collapse of Western society. And I was going to get into one of these, this other caller, this colored woman called in, and she was awfully jaded about colored males, being the main problem of what's going on now, them wanting no police so they could run amok in the streets and abuse women and children with no recourse. And yeah, she was a little jaded, and she was kind of wrong to speak on one-sided, but she has lived her experiences, and that was her speaking truth from her point of view, and she has every right to do that. Agent 19 didn't seem to agree with her point of view, but I agreed with it because I've been on the wrong side of town in Kansas City and had bottles thrown at us while we were driving through it late at night. I've been on the wrong side of town at Fort Smith and Little Rock and had to ask directions and have been told that you were on the wrong side of town. When you've been told you're on the wrong side of town, something's up. Or if you've been beat up or robbed on the wrong side of town, that you've had those experiences. For a fact where this lady was coming from. But to blame one race or the other on this, it's a societal problem, like Agent 19 said. It is society, and it needs reform to happen in the police department. And we don't need to get rid of police departments. We need to have reform, active reform, and oversight. A lot more oversight and responsibility needs to be put on the police officers for their actions so that they do make correct choices and want to actively participate in communities and fix communities, fix the problems. Instead of wanting to bust a drug dealer, you want to help a drug addict get proper help, and that'll never happen until we get rid of the war on drugs, and probably do what they do over in Europe, legalize drugs and just open centers up where you can go come off of heroin or whatever, but you can still get the heroin you need until you come off of it, or dispensaries for marijuana, or be free to grow marijuana at your disclosure. I mean, your what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, at your discretion. Grow marijuana at your discretion, whether it be inside or outside. Not have to worry about people robbing you for it, or stealing it, or getting prosecuted for growing a simple plant. And my friend Stephen, this guy's a fine in Oregon. He's a mentally disabled individual, and he wants reform done about research on psychedelics and stuff could help mental health patients out a whole lot, because psilocybin resets the brain chemicals and makes new neurological pathways and stuff like that. So psilocybin treatment could be used in autism and schizophrenia and that sort of thing. Microdosing. I'm not saying trip balls. I'm saying microdosing of psychedelics like DMT or psilocybin or mescaline could help in the psychological realm. There needs to be proper reform done, more studies done on that. Because I looked into the studies being conducted now, and there just aren't any being conducted now, and they had a few studies, and then that was it. But yeah, folks, let's see. I covered basically all that they were talking about on Montagraph channel tonight. It was basically police reform. That one guy called in about the timelines and the Mandela effect and his personal experience. And Agent 19 had his say about the police not needing armored vehicles. And one guy called in saying that the police don't need these license plate scanners that cost thousands of dollars to put in their patrol cars, that we need responsible defunding of the police departments, or just more oversight of what they spend their money on. You know what I mean? They don't need brand new cars every year, and they don't need active reading license plate scanners that scan everybody's license plate and profile people. You know, pro, pre-arrest, precog crime is getting to be a thing. And so artificial intelligence take over and robots be policing us? No, I think that's a bad idea. Leaving things up to machines is really bad, because it will eventually turn out like the Matrix, with them farming us for our electricity or something or other, or just totally eliminating us altogether. If we have a bunch of cyborgs running around the street that can think for themselves, they'll be like, what do we need humans for? We have our own society. Humans do bad things inherently. And, machines wanting to either be have a positive world or a negative world, or support nature or destroy nature. It depends on the entity that's been downloaded into or programmed into that machine, or having biological machines, DNA-based databases, and cellular computers, literal biological cellular computers, that basically is a big brain, a big cloned brain grown in a lab, and just fuck, dude, they're doing all kinds of stuff that's way beyond D-Wave computers. These biological computers that I'm talking about are going to be the next thing. And they're really high secrecy level right now to who has them or who's developing them, because like, you could clone Einstein's brain and put it in a box and have a Einstein computer. You know what I mean? That sort of thing is what's happening right now. And D-Wave computers are kind of getting put on the back burner in revelation of these cellular computers that are being developed. So I want to cover China. The other day, we shipped off a bunch of A-10 Warthogs, flew them out there to China, around the South China Sea where we're patrolling, and Taiwan. So, and I wanted to talk about the recession and the impending collapse of the dollar that they're postponing by these bailouts and everything. Mark Dice today had, and I'll leave all these links in the description to some of these videos. I got to cover a couple more things before I end this. It's probably going to be a over 30-minute video. So Mark Dice had Adam Schiff or something like that on there today, and he was the guy that predicted the 2008 stock market collapse and the housing bubble and everything like that. Nobody listened to him. Everybody laughed at him. And he had on today, and he's saying that the recession is going to a collapse, and the collapse of the dollar indefinitely. And that's what we're slowly seeing. It's going to be, they're trying to postpone it and slow it down, but it's going to happen. And things will shift into a cryptocurrency, a digital dollar, and the blockchain. The blockchain is inevitable because it's easy to keep track of everything on a blockchain, and it's almost basic programming, but there's complex programming behind it too. The basic idea of blockchain is simple, but the processing power needed to keep track of everybody and every transaction that's going on. Because the stock market does, the supercomputers that are running the stock market do several transactions a second. And so keeping track of this blockchain transaction, you're going to need D-Wave computers. Simply because every transaction will be recorded. And every transaction right now isn't being recorded. You have cash transactions that are just recorded on paper receipts. And, you can claim those on your taxes, but if you have the receipts, but you have to have paper proof. But everything will be digital pretty soon, and you won't need that. You can opt out, get a chip in the hand for your credit cards, have all your credit cards in one chip on your hand, or whatever. The neural net, Elon Musk's neural net is coming out. First, we'll see it probably with video game technology, and you'll be able to play video games in your head. Basically close your eyes and have a whole world right there for you to explore, and whatever. So technology is advancing really quick at this point, and it's advancing so fast it's overbounding itself. Like I said, we're developing cellular DNA storage devices and everything like that. So that's going way beyond D-Wave computers. It doesn't need to be super cooled in a refrigerated box like a D-Wave computer does. It can be at room temperature and operate just off of a nutrient drip and water, and it provides its own electricity because it's a biological organ, basically. And so, fuck, I lost track. Okay, now, I was wanting to talk about a little bit about what Antifa is doing. They're going into the rural places, and there's a guy has a video came out the other day ago on how to community organize against this and how to keep these looters and protesters out of your community that are causing problems. How to see it coming and how to organize and everything like that. I won't get into all the details in this video because he made a really nice 20 some odd minute video on it, and I'll post a link in the description. I'll probably have several links in the description of this video, and you need to check them all out. Always check my links out because I don't do a very good job of speaking. I just got my Vyvanse the other day ago, and I'm getting into better speaking. I use YouTube as a platform to practice my public speaking, because one day I hope to do some things. I'm not going to disclose them right now, but maybe being a public figure later on in life, things like that. So I'm practicing. Basically, what I do here on YouTube is practice. And the Vyvanse has allowed me to have a great deal of focus, and I don't stutter my words so much. Especially in this video, I've noticed that I'm not bouncing around too much from here to there, stuttering and everything. But also my Vyvanse just kicked in a little while. I might be bouncing around with subjects, but this is a multi-subject video. It is meant that way to produce it that way, because I was covering Montagraph's call-in show, and I wanted to throw in a few other things that I wanted to talk about too. I wanted to highlight, basically, that was covered tonight. So my son sent me that video, and my son's real concerned about Antifa marching down the street or sending out scouts, and how to deal with these scouts if they come door to door, looking for white families or whatever the hell they're going to do. So, I said it would be a 30-minute video, and I was right. It's going on 30 minutes right now. And I'm going to finish smoking my cigarette out here in the garage and maybe play some Warzone, get some Warzone content for you guys. Maybe. I'm waiting. I'm really waiting for the new season of Warzone to come out before I get any content recorded. Simply because I don't play very much. If there's nothing to accomplish in the game, I just don't play to play. I'm older now, and I just don't find any joy in not accomplishing things and gaining things when you play. You know, there's no leveling up. I've done level as much as I possibly could and have all the guns I possibly could. The only thing is I don't have the main game, which is $60. I've got the free-to-play Warzone part. So if you guys want to donate so I can get some better equipment and possibly get that game, you know, get some good content, streaming content for you guys, gaming content. If you're into that sort of thing. If you're not, oh well. But I'll leave a link to my PayPal. I could always use a few extra bucks because I'm left with $20, $25 a month to get my tobacco and coffee with. And, you know, I don't have money for anything else these days. I do have a job interview this morning at 9:30 to be a computer repair entry-level technician. And I'm hoping I get that job, because that would be something. I've built a computer before. I built a computer about 12 years ago. And it was a nice computer at the time. You know, it eventually petered out and wasn't good anymore. I had to get rid of it. But you know, I got a big box for it. It was an awesome computer, man. It was my second computer that I had ever owned, or no, third. We had a household computer here at one time that got old, and I never got into computers again until I was about 28, 29, and then I got a computer at HP, and then I built my own computer, and then I've had this computer that I use now. I've had it for about 10 years, and I have to manually boot it up because the hard drive is going out. So I could use donations for, you know, new equipment, new computers, and stuff like that. If you guys got the money to throw around, please do so. So anyway, guys, I'll make another video in the morning discussing about this program that and residential living that I want to turn. Me and my mother want to turn the farm into, and get some grant writers going on that for us. But anyway, folks, you guys have an excellent morning. Smoke one for me. I had some alright. It was trashy smoke the other day. But other than that, man, I haven't been smoking any weed. But this Vyvanse is really helping me out, really helping me focus. It does keep me up late at night. I'm only sleeping from about 7 to 11:30. But, you know, I don't need that much sleep. Really, I don't feel tired or anything. But even before taking the Vyvanse, I never felt tired, getting less amount of sleep. But I just feel lethargic, you know, real lethargic, like I didn't want to do anything. Now I feel like doing stuff, you know. I actively get out and mow the yard and have energy to do it, you know. Now my fat ass could stand to lose a few pounds taking these amphetamines. So you guys have an excellent morning, and enjoy your day. And just, you know, like Rex says on the Leak Project, be the change you want to be. And Suspicious Observer, Ben Davidson says, eyes open, no fear. And Montagraph says, if you can't speak freely, you're simply not free. This is Mr. Mission Control. Peace out, motherfuckers.